Hello everyone, thank you for coming back to the Bookish Thoughts channel. I'm Jay, and tonight we'll be doing another wine and book pairing. So if this is your first time here, and it probably is at this point, thank you for clicking and thanks for trying this out. What we do for wine and book pairings is that we take a wine and we taste it, we talk about it a little bit, and then we see what kind of vibe it gives off. The vibe of the wine, like its kind of personality. And okay, don't be intimidated. This is not like I'm not a wine professional. I'm not going to go into all the tasting notes or anything like that. Maybe a little bit, but based basically on the back of the bottle or on the descriptions that are available on like wine retail websites. So this is basically like the vibe the wine gives me. It's kind of the impression it gives me and its personality. And then we take that vibe, and then we look at books that we think match that vibe and we think would go well with drinking this wine. Like, like take a glass of wine, take a book, and spend Friday evening reading and drinking, which is what I do. So I want to bring that joy to all of you, and I always try to match my own books with my wine, and this is kind of the process of how I do it. So tonight's wine we will be doing is a very flirty name. It's Gossip Sweet Lips. This is actually one of my favorite wines. I'm sorry, it's kind of wet because I had it in the fridge. So this is Gossip Sweet Lips. That's the label. And it is the Gossip Sweet Lips Dolcetto Syrah. It is a southeastern Australian wine. And yeah, it's not gonna lie, I first bought it because of the name. I'm very impulsive, and I sometimes buy my wine based on that. But I was choosing between this and one other wine. I couldn't remember what, and I was like, you know what? A name this flirty you can't go wrong. So I picked it up, and yeah, let's see. So on the back of the bottle it says cherry and dark berry slight spritz with a crisp finish. It is 7.5% alcohol, so that's pretty good right now because it's really hot here. And yeah, I drink it chilled. You want to hear the bottle? Did pick that up. Yeah, so it's a screw top bottle, so I'm willing to open it on camera. But my favorite. Okay, let's pour some out. Okay. So there it is. You can't see it because I kind of poured a lot and the light's not hitting it right, but it's a kind of dark red, kind of cherry colored, and it smells very sweet. It smells very sweet. And when you taste it, it is sweet too. I will say though, the thing about this, it's not sweet the way like a dessert wine would be sweet. It's sweet like it tastes very much like fruit. It tastes very much like fruit. But there is a tartness to it. There's a slight tartness to the taste that gives it a little something sassy, something a little flirty feeling. Also the tartness does make you think of cherries, like the way the back of the bottle says. So yeah, there is a slight spritz. It's very slightly spritzed. Think like sparkling water that's been left out too long, or soda that's been left out too long. That's what you would, that's the level of spritz that you would get. One of my favorites. My dad also loves this wine. And really, it lives up to its name. It's called Gossip Sweet Lips, and it tastes like how you'd imagine a wine named Gossip Sweet Lips would taste like. It tastes flirty. It tastes fun. It's very easy to drink. You would imagine drinking this like alone at a bar and looking your best, like all dressed up, hair and makeup, and then this hot, handsome guy comes to you and says like, "How are you doing?" Or like, "What are you reading, miss?" Yeah, kind of like that. This is the wine you want to be drinking when that happens, because you're gonna feel like those vibes. You're gonna be like, yeah. So what books would go with this wine? Okay. I'm sorry. It is like, I don't know how hot it is. So what books would go with this wine? I have 3 books here that I think would go with this wine. One of them I actually did read while drinking this wine. Another one I wish I had read while drinking this wine. And one that I haven't read yet, but is on my TBR, and I hope I am able to work it out so that I pair it with this wine. So the first one is the book that I read with this wine, and that is The Knight and the Necromancer series by A.H. Lee. A.H. Lee is the pen name for Abigail Hilton. She writes under A.H. Lee for like her smuttier works, you know? So that should give you a warning that this is pretty smutty. This work is pretty smutty. But, you know, aside from the smut, it is a well-crafted, well-written fantasy romance. It's, I picked it up because, again, the name, just like the wine, the name just really intrigued me. I'm like, The Knight and the Necromancer. That sounds like something out of a D&D book, and I just had to have it. And I was not disappointed. It's about a prince who is a knight who falls in love with a necromancer who is the protege of like this evil necromancer who was defeated by the knight's father, the former king. And they're up against this big wizard, and the necromancer comes to the city to offer his help. The two of them meet and they fall in love, but then there's a war going on. And it's really just amazing how much fantasy and world building is built into this book. It's not a book, it's a trilogy, but honestly, if you can buy it as a set, it would works out cheaper, and it's probably just the same in terms of the reading time, because they're really short. They're like 200 plus pages only each. And so you can read it as a long book, or you can do what I did and read it as a trilogy, because I struggled with attention. But so yeah, so they fit a lot of world building into the short books. And considering like a lot of it is romance and a lot of it is smut, there still is a lot of world building. They have great characters, great representation of characters. There's great well-written female characters. The identities of the two men who are falling in love are well crafted, and you can see their struggles with each other, but how much they also care about each other. Excuse the sound, that droning sound, that's the electric fan. I was trying to film without it, but I don't know if you guys could see, I was just pouring sweat. I couldn't deal with it, so I turned on the fan. You're just gonna have to deal with the audio. I'm sorry. So The Knight and the Necromancer series, they fit a lot of world building into the book, considering it's mainly a fantasy romance. They have well-crafted characters, an amazing representation of characters, a really strong female lead. Not female lead, because I mean the two leads are both men, but a female sporting character who is a leader. That's what I meant. A female character who's a leader, who's really strong and independent and well crafted, and is not just like a stereotype strong girl. The two main leads are very sympathetic. You really understand their conflict, their internal conflict, but as well as their conflict about falling in love with each other. It's just a beautiful, well-written books. It's a series, and it's flirty, it's fun. You get all the feels. You just get all the feels, and you just want the two characters to live happily ever after, which is always what I want when I read. That for me, that's like the measure of a good romance if I fall in love with both characters and I just want them to live happily ever after together. You know, it's a bad romance if I want them to live happily ever after away from each other. But in this case, I want them to be together and be happy together and just spend the rest of their lives being cute and loving each other. So that's the first book that I would pair Gossip Sweet Lips Dolcetto Syrah with. The next book I didn't pair with this wine while reading, but I did read it, and when I was thinking of books to pair with this, I was like, this book should have gone well with this wine. And that is a nonfiction book. It's called Lady Killers, Deadly Women Throughout History by Tori Telfer. It's by Tori Telfer, and it's a collection of short biographies, summaries, not summaries, like not stories either, because they're not fiction. Like short stories or short biographies about different lady serial killers throughout history. And I mean throughout history. Most of these are almost ancient or like in the Middle Ages. The most recent one I think was in the 1950s, or maybe even earlier than that, around the 1930s. So it's a pretty old collection. And hang on. So it's a pretty old collection, and the stories are pretty, the women it features are pretty old, are older. I mean, they're dead by now, but the stories that it features are older. But it's a really fascinating history. The stories are well chosen, and you get to really, it's hard to say that you sympathize with these characters. They're not characters, they're real people. It's hard to say you sympathize with them, but in some cases you do. Because, I mean, they were just hustling in a world that was built for men. And since these were all really set in the bygone years, if it's hard now, and you hear about women killing men to get ahead now, what more back then? So you hear about, and don't get me wrong, some of them are really ruthless and cruel and awful and do not deserve any sympathy. But others, can't blame a woman for hustling. So it's just short, it's sassy, just like this wine. It's got a little tartness to it. For those who are uncomfortable reading true crime, don't worry, I wouldn't say this is graphic at all. It's very storytelling like, and it does give a bit of a feminist bent to it. I do wish it pushed further into the analysis, but ultimately it's not a feminist or sociology book. It's a book about serial killers and true crime and trying to satisfy that macabre urge we have to read about serial killers. So it's great. It's wonderful, and it goes wonderful with this wine. The last book is the book I haven't read, but that I desperately want to read, and I have the audiobook saved on Scribd, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. And it's probably the most famous book of these three too. And it's a book true darling. So for those of you who have read it, don't spoil it for me. Although I think it's kind of been spoiled for me already. But don't judge me for not having read it yet. And it's The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Jenkins Reid. So this book is, again, super famous. I don't even know if I need to tell you guys what it's about, but it's about an aging movie star who invites a reporter into her home to tell her life story, and she tells her life story. She goes through her life in show business, her life after show business, the love she had, the trials and tribulations she had. And yeah, it's that, and it's a deep dive into this woman's life and her history, and I feel like it would be perfect to read with a wine that's kind of sweet but not cloying, sweet but tart, has that little sass of personality. So that's what I think. I'm really looking forward to reading it. I don't know when I'll get around to it, because there are just so many books on my TBR, and I'm actually a really slow reader. So that's it. Those are the 3 books I think would pair beautifully with the Gossip Sweet Lips Dolcetto Syrah. Those are The Knight and the Necromancer series by A.H. Lee, Lady Killers by Tori Telfer, and The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So if you enjoyed this, please leave a like and a comment. If you reached the end of the video, leave the double pink heart emoji. Yeah, leave the double pink heart emoji if you made it all the way to the end of this video. Please like and subscribe. You can find links in the description to my Goodreads and StoryGraph if you guys want to check me out there. I do post reviews of books, and I do keep both of those accounts pretty updated, so you can follow along to what I'm reading. And yeah, I would love to see what you guys are reading on those platforms too, so just send me a follow-up, and if I don't respond, just send me a message and I'll look into it. So there, I hope you got some good book ideas, and cheers!